Hello, welcome. It's Frances here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I bid thee welcome. There's a subscribe button and a bell below if you want to be notified as to when I upload more content. And I do that on a rather ad hoc basis. I'm coming to you from Ghana country, and as such I acknowledge that the Ghana people here of the Adelaide Plains were the traditional custodians of this land, and I acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. And I will stop playing with my pens. So I haven't done a moon update for a little while. Life's just seemed to have gotten in the way, and then I was away, and then I was sick. But I'm coming up to a full moon next week. It will be in the astrological sign of Capricorn, the sea goat, and it will be full at 4:07 a.m. on the 14th here in Adelaide, South Australia. So as we know, the moon tends to illuminate, especially what's been hidden, bringing things into public arena, so to speak. It's also going to be a supermoon, which means that when the moon moves on its ecliptic around the earth, it's actually going to be at that position where it's closer to the earth, so it's going to appear larger. So more shadowy stuff is going to be illuminated, so to speak. And as I said, it's going to be in the astrological sign of Capricorn, which means that the sun is in the opposing sign of Cancer. So we are dealing with these cardinal energies, which sort of invites us to become or remind ourselves that we are leaders in our own right, and really look at the energy that we may be handing over voluntarily to other people as opposed to taking responsibility for our own selves. It's also asking us to be a little bit more confident in the choices that we are making. However, just a reminder again to see things at a bigger picture, be a bit more confident when we are striving out, especially when our decisions affect beyond ourselves. We seem to get very isolated or narrow focused from time to time. It's also a time to draw down our power, especially our power reserves, bringing attention to the source of our own supply, especially if we're working energetically. We are always connected to energetic channeling from the ultimate source, whatever you want to term that to be. So look after ourselves and make sure that we are grounded and that our channels are open, especially when we have other people who are reliant on us. Now the moon is bound by Pluto. So Pluto is a power wielding planet, and while the sun is near Mercury as well, we've got these energies or these tensions could be in the air between the moon, Pluto, the sun and Mercury, which tends to suggest that maybe deep secrets or hidden agendas or dramatic revelations may create some sort of tense emotions. Some of these revelations may actually surprise us, stun us into silence, where we can't find the words to express ourselves properly, or others may actually just leave us struggling for the right words to use to convey our deepest emotions and feelings. So we could actually be a little bit stunned by what some of these things that may be revealed. And it's quite interesting because at the moment we're seeing the removal of the British Prime Minister, even though it's going to be taking a little while, but there's also a little bit of a stunned response to the fact that he may actually, even though he's been forced to resign, be hanging around in his position. So things have been revealed, but the outcome isn't exactly appearing to be immediate. There's also a support from Uranus and Neptune. There's also a supportive trine with the Saturn and Venus, reminding us that our choices and our voices also matter. So again, it's coming back to that power base right at the beginning and being confident. And a reminder that being silent on some issues may actually do more harm than good. So again, a sort of a encouragement to stand up and speak our truth. However, it is important to remain grounded in the present and react, if we must react, to what is actually in front of us, and we've got the truth from it, not from hearsay that we do not have a truth base, but also be able to reach out to family, friends, guides, people who support us, and also our own inner knowledge, tapping back into our heart center to gain that inner clarity. Moving back to the moon, that's all the surrounding energies, bringing back to this moon in Capricorn. And as I do normally, I'll link below all the astrological sites that I am referring to, because I'm not an astrologer, I just have an interest in what they come up with. So Pippa Kate, who's an Australian astrologer, indicates that this full moon in Capricorn calls us to witness and to take responsibility for our own programming, to how we perceive things, and the ways in which how we perceive or interpret things actually plays out in the wider community. Capricorn is often associated with a shift in consciousness, but first we need to dive into our own shadows in order to ascend. So again, this is what the energies seems to be like forever. Basically since the pandemic has appeared on our doorstep, all of these things have been asking us to dive or look at our shadow aspects that we have sort of like hidden, pushed into the corners, ignored, and time to actually start working through, get rid of the things that no longer assist us, or just embrace the things and accept that they are part of who we are, our society, if we're not going to take that big leap and moving forward. Full moon is bringing light to what was actually commenced during the last new moon in Capricorn. Now that was back on the 13th of January 2021, so over 18 months ago. So what has been manifesting since then? This energy of this current moon is guiding our society and is calling for an immense amount of shadow work to be addressed, to be cleared. So it's all coming to the surface in order to be cleaned out, showing us whether we assimilate with it or not. So we still need to discriminate. Now, she also mentioned that this moon is big in three ways. As I said, it's a super moon, being closer to the earth, which also means that its pull on the tides are also stronger. It's in Capricorn, which I said is the sign of the initiator, or also into a new area of consciousness. And she also mentions that it's aligned with Pluto, who I did mention very briefly earlier, who sort of is the energy behind stirring up all the sort of shadowy aspects. And this is something that we have been sort of dealing with since 2019. I said even before, around the time the pandemics was starting to hit. So we've sort of been in this really big spiral pattern of shadow work. And according to Pippa Kate, this is going to continue until April next year. So we've got plenty of time to really dive deep and to take a long, good look at ourselves, what we are projecting outward, what we are projecting inward, what we're taking on board, as above, so below, as without, so within, so to speak. And we may even be noticing that there is some kind of splitting of consciousness around us in relation to the people that we deal with. There may be a change or different camps of people, some people who are embracing this change, who are rising above, who are shifting their consciousness and moving forward, and those who seem to be more caught up, more fear-based. And we know fear is darker energy or deeper, heavier energy, so they are sort of not rising up with other people. They are still keeping themselves on a more denser level of consciousness. And neither is better or worse than the other. It's just that we are in different places. And if you are probably more opening up and finding that your own consciousness, your own perception is rising, this could actually cause a little bit of tension or even disassociation with people who are still caught up in that fear-based, more materialistic, lower energies. From my perspective, I find it's really interesting at times just to sit back and observe. Don't cast any judgment, because we all have been in these places, and it's okay to fear. Fear is just one of our natural emotions when it is a lot of change, and we've gone through a lot of change. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we are still in a very uncertain time, so it's very natural for that people are sort of hanging on to what is more familiar to them, and that is okay. If this is how they get through these changing times. Not everybody can take the big breath and just jump into the abyss. Some people need to be gently led in. So we all move at our own pace. Shifting in consciousness happens when we realize that we are responsible for our own selves. And again, it's about tapping back into this power, realizing that we are sovereign beings in our own right, and having power and handling our power is almost like a double-edged sword, because we take responsibility for it. We have long been in a society where it's been easy to blame other people. Now it's time to stand in our own power, which actually means taking responsibility. So rising of consciousness is remembering that consciousness is not based on fear. However, also being mindful that in order to ascend, or in order to make sure that our energy gets lighter, this will actually invoke our shadows that more. And again, it's sort of like we feel like we might be taking one step forward, 2 steps backwards, but in order to deal with shadow work, and I said there's many ways of dealing with it, and sometimes it's just acknowledging that we are imperfect in the perfect way that we're meant to be in order to move on. But in doing that, we begin to see what lies beyond the ego mind and the little boxes that we put ourselves in. It's quite interesting, because what I have on the laptop at the moment is a video course that I'm doing on ancient Egyptology, and we're talking about changing our perceptions and how we view things. So we're moving from our ego mind and all the little departmentalizations that we like to put labels on and pigeonhole things, because as humans that's what we do. So when we start learning how to break through that, or break these down, we can start freeing our own selves up a little bit more, and also freeing up our consciousness. So that's getting off track a little bit, but that's what this new moon energy is, full moon energy in Capricorn is going to be all about, especially with Capricorn connected with our higher consciousness and moving forward. So I hope you are well. I hope that it makes sense, gives you something to think about, definitely something to meditate on as we take in these lunar energies. Blessing.